So I filmed myself doing some art journaling today because my intention was to come to YouTube with a video about perfectionism. And the real only way I can honestly and with any kind of vulnerability talk about how perfectionism has impacted my life is, I guess, through telling the story of my own crappy perfectionistic tendencies, how they have impacted me, and how I've been positively impacted by my art practice in ways that I never could have predicted, but that have been very valuable for me. So, the reason I am touching upon perfectionism is because so many people bring up perfectionism. In the art community, the online art community, people are always mentioning how they struggle with perfectionism. And a lot of people are saying, I can't even make art. I watch you, I follow you on Instagram, I follow all sorts of artists on Instagram, but I'm not making any art because my perfectionism is entirely preventing me from making any art. So I don't know that I have any answers for anyone. The only thing that I have is the ability to basically share my own stories and my own experiences. So the way that perfectionism has shown up for me in my life was really very centered around my body. I was raised in a home where it was not unclear to me that my parents, my grandparents, they thought that I was too large. And this is a very common story. I just don't even feel that bad about it anymore or hold such huge resentments anymore about it because it's so common. But I was not a small person, and as a female in the world, there's just so much pressure to be small. And when the entire society buys into the idea that you have to be as small as you can possibly be, well, that's going to affect a lot of people very, very negatively. And I did not have great self esteem. I still don't have great self esteem. I don't even try to have great self esteem because I've been so affected by this in my life. I've just accepted that this is what it is. This is who I am. These are the experiences that I've had, and I'm doing the best that I can with what I've been given. And because there was so much pressure to be smaller, because there was so much pressure to achieve in many ways, I definitely developed a part of my personality that looked and smelled and felt like a perfectionistic personality. Like if I could not do something perfectly or be the best at it, that it wasn't worth doing at all. And this ended up leading me down a very, very, very dark path of having an eating disorder and spending a good deal of my energy in life on trying to make myself smaller. And it wasn't until I started coming out of that eating disorder and being exposed to alternate ways of understanding society and my own experiences with my body. It happened to coincide really perfectly with coming back to art and my own art practice. And I was exposed to a lot of alternative ways of seeing diet culture and body image, and the idea that there's one right size body and that my life goal should be to try to achieve that perfect body. That period of my life ended at around the same time that I was discovering the world of art journaling. And the world of art journaling is amazing. It opens people up to this idea that you can make art for yourself and that you can make art imperfectly and that you can find your own place of happiness with it and you don't have to do it for anyone else. But even within that, I still found that I needed to address perfectionism. And it probably, for me, came up in different ways than it comes up for you. But the way that it came up for me was I actually was very attracted to imperfect art. And I wanted to make imperfect art desperately. I saw artists out there who were very free and expressive with their art, and it reminded me of a child who makes art without any of the pressure of it having to look a certain way. And I wanted to feel that way. And I would see in their art that they had this looseness about it, this messiness about it that I really desired. And I tried making art that way, and it wasn't natural at all. And it was difficult, very, very difficult for me to do that. And I wasn't finding flow with that way of making art. And I needed to get to a place where I accepted myself and what I was capable of doing and allowed myself to be my natural self. So, in the same way that I had to allow my body to be its natural size and shape and to just accept it, I also had to get to a place where I allowed my art to be its natural self. And for me, that looks like kind of tight and rigid art. If you're familiar with a lot of what I paint, it's very in the box, inside the lines. It's not messy. It's not expressionistic. It just so happens that making art and making a lot of art is very, very healthy for my nervous system. And I needed to accept, and I did accept, who I am as an artist, being way tighter, more rigid, and more perfectionistic looking than I actually wanted my art to look. Isn't that funny? I had to accept myself and what my limitations were, which were this is the way that I naturally make art. And guess what? I'm going to make a lot of it, even if it doesn't look like the art that I see other people making that I wish I could make. I mean, I could roll a long list of really messy artists out for you that I would be so happy if I could make art like they make art. But I don't make art like they make art. And once I came to accept that about myself, my life got a lot better. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to keep trying to make messy art. Every once in a while, I bring out a journal like I brought out today on this video, and I'm going to try to find techniques to help myself loosen up. And what I'm doing here on this video is instead of trying to create one messy art journal spread that is satisfying to me, I'm just letting go of all of that and I'm just playing. I'm doing one thing repetitively that I find satisfying and then moving on to another thing that I find satisfying. So if I like dabbing my finger in paint and rubbing it in the page because there's something about that color and there's something about the way that that feels, I'm just going to do that over and over and over all throughout the journal until I'm bored with that and I'm ready to move on. And then maybe I am like, you know what? I feel like ripping some paper and gluing down pieces of collage fodder. I'm just going to do that until that feels like, okay, I've gotten that out of my system. And then I'll move on to something else. So that helps me open up. Is it satisfying? Do I end up with an art journal spread that I can photograph and put on Instagram and, be really proud of, like I've made the art that I really want to make? I don't even know. But I'm going to make the art anyway because it's just so entertaining. It's just so relaxing to rub that glue stick on that piece of collage fodder and then to rub that piece of collage fodder onto that other piece of paper. And I have to let go of the outcome looking any certain way. I just have to do what feels good and not worry about the rest. If I ever end up getting an art journal spread that feels like, oh, wow, it looks just like those 10 messy artists that I love so much, that would be some kind of small miracle for me. But I have to make art anyway because I know how much I need to make art. So I think that has been huge for me. Just coming to all these realizations about myself and what I need and letting go of ideas about what my art needs to look like. Because everyone has a very different idea about what they would like their art to look like. And oftentimes, what we want our art to look like and what we're capable of doing are not going to match up. They might end up coming together at some point down the road, I guess, if we make enough art. But I don't want to wait for that moment of feeling like I can make the kind of art that I want to make in order to allow myself a ton of space in my life to just make art. I'm really happy now with just making art, whether it's the kind of art that I would love to make or the kind of art that I'm happy enough with making. I just make art.